Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode feels very close to my heart because we're talking about something so many English learners struggle with. You know that moment when your mind knows what to say, but your mouth just freezes?
Oh, yes. I know that feeling too well. You're in a conversation, someone is waiting for your answer, and suddenly every sentence feels slow and heavy. You start thinking about grammar, word order, and everything at the same time.
Exactly. And the more you think, the slower you speak. So today, we want to talk about something simple but powerful, repeating sentence structures to speak faster and more naturally.
This isn't about learning hundreds of new words. It's about using the same sentence patterns again and again until your brain stops panicking and starts flowing.
If you've ever said, "I understand English, but I can't speak fast," this episode is for you.
Before we start, please remember to like the video if this topic helps you, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes.
And don't forget, there's a PDF with the full conversation, so you can read, repeat, and practice at your own pace.
All right, let's get into it.
Leo, I want to start with something very honest. For years, I thought speaking fast meant knowing more grammar. I studied rules, I memorized tenses, and still, when I opened my mouth, everything felt slow. I remember thinking, why am I like this? Have you ever felt that way?
Absolutely. And I still remember one specific moment. I was traveling, someone asked me a very simple question, and I knew the answer. But I tried to build a perfect sentence in my head, and by the time I spoke, the moment was gone. That's when I realized something important. Speed doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from thinking less.
I can really relate to that. I think many adults feel pressure to sound perfect, especially at work or with strangers. We don't want to make mistakes, so we build sentences from zero every time. But native speakers don't do that. They reuse the same sentence shapes again and again.
Yes, they rely on patterns. For example, a very common structure is, what I want to say is, this sentence buys you time and gives your brain space. You don't need to invent anything new. You just follow the structure. And once you repeat it many times, it becomes automatic.
That phrase, buy time, is actually a very useful expression. It means giving yourself a little extra time to think without stopping the conversation. When learners hear that, they often say, "Oh, I didn't know English had tricks like this."
It really does. Another structure I love is the reason is that. You can use it in so many situations. The reason is that I was busy. The reason is that I felt tired. When you repeat this structure, your mouth starts moving faster because the beginning is always the same.
And that's the key point. Repetition creates speed. You're not repeating because you're lazy. You're repeating because you're training your brain. It's like muscle memory. When you practice the same movement, your body stops asking questions.
Exactly. And here's another everyday expression learners find helpful: to be honest. When you say, "To be honest, I was nervous," it sounds natural and gives you confidence. It also signals that something real is coming next, so listeners stay engaged.
I love that one. It feels very human. And I think confidence grows when you notice that people understand you, even if your English isn't perfect. Speaking faster doesn't mean speaking without mistakes. It means not stopping every 2 seconds to judge yourself.
That's such an important point. I often tell learners to choose 3 or 4 sentence structures and repeat them for a week. For example, what I mean is, the thing is, or it depends on. These are flexible. You can use them in work meetings, casual chats, or even when you're tired.
It depends on is a great one. It sounds advanced, but it's actually very simple. It depends on the time. It depends on how I feel. And when you repeat it, you stop searching for new ways to answer.
Exactly. And when you stop searching, you start speaking. That's the real goal here. Speaking faster isn't about rushing. It's about removing the blocks in your head.
I remember one learner telling me, "I finally spoke faster because I stopped trying to be interesting." That sentence stayed with me. When you use familiar structures, you free your energy to focus on meaning, not form.
That's such a powerful realization. And honestly, listeners care more about connection than perfection. They want to understand you, not judge your grammar.
What about you listening right now? Do you feel like your sentences are slow because you're building them piece by piece? If so, you're not alone, and this can change.
And the good news is, you don't need more hours of study. You need smarter practice. Repeat the same sentence structures out loud, again and again, until they feel boring. That's when they start working.
I love that idea. When something feels boring, it means it's becoming natural. That's a good sign.
Exactly. And once it's natural, speed follows.
You know, Sophie, when you say that boredom is a good sign, it really hits something important. Many learners think learning should always feel exciting, but fluency often grows in those quiet, repetitive moments. When a sentence structure feels boring, it means your brain no longer sees it as a problem to solve.
Yes, and I think adults especially struggle with that idea. We're used to progress feeling dramatic, like a big breakthrough, but speaking faster usually comes from small, invisible changes. One day you just notice that you answered without stopping, and you think, wait, that was easier.
I remember that moment for myself. I was using the structure, what I'm trying to say is, again and again. At first, it felt fake, like I was hiding behind it. But after some time, it became part of me. I didn't even notice I was using it anymore.
That's such a common experience. And what I'm trying to say is a great example because it removes pressure. It tells the listener, give me a second. I'm organizing my thoughts. It's polite, natural, and very human.
Exactly. And that brings us to another useful expression. Give me a second. This doesn't mean exactly 1 second. It simply means you need a short moment. Native speakers use it all the time, and learners often forget they're allowed to say things like that.
I'm glad you said aloud, because that's how it feels sometimes. Like there are rules that say, you must speak perfectly and quickly, or you've failed. But real conversations don't work like that. They are full of pauses, restarts, and repeated patterns.
And when you accept that, speaking faster becomes easier. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're cooperating with your brain. For example, another structure I often recommend is the way I see it. It's simple, but it sounds confident.
Yes, and it works even if your idea is simple. The way I see it, we need more time. The way I see it, this is a good start. You don't need complex ideas to use strong structures.
That's such an important point. Many learners think, I need advanced vocabulary to sound fluent. But fluency is often about rhythm, not difficulty. Repeating strong sentence structures creates a natural rhythm in your speech.
Rhythm is a great word for this. When you repeat patterns, your speaking becomes smoother, almost like music. You're not stopping after every word, and that smoothness often sounds like speed to other people.
Yes, even if you're not actually speaking faster, you sound more confident. And confidence changes how people listen to you. They focus on your message, not your mistakes.
I've noticed that learners who practice sentence structures out loud improve much faster than those who only read or listen. Speaking out loud trains your mouth, not just your mind.
Exactly. And that leads to another everyday expression, out loud. When we say practice out loud, we mean using your voice, not just thinking. Your brain and your mouth need to work together.
I used to think talking to myself was strange. Now I see it as one of the best tools. Repeating structures while walking, cooking, or driving makes them part of your daily life.
And it removes fear because no one is listening. You can make mistakes, repeat the same sentence 10 times, and nobody cares. That freedom is powerful.
What about you listening right now? Do you practice silently, or do you use your voice? If it's mostly silent, maybe that's why speaking feels slow.
That's a great question. And another thing I want to mention is choosing the right structures. They should be useful for your life. If you work, choose work-related ones. If you travel, choose travel ones.
Yes, relevance matters. If the sentence connects to your real experiences, your brain remembers it better. For example, what usually happens is perfect for daily routines and explanations.
And it's flexible. What usually happens is I wake up early. What usually happens is we talk about it later. Same beginning, different endings.
That repetition at the beginning is what creates speed. You don't need to search for how to start. Your mouth already knows.
Exactly. And once the beginning is automatic, the rest follows more easily. It's like opening a door. Once it's open, you can walk through.
I love that image, and I think many learners are standing in front of the door trying to design the perfect key. But the key is already there. It's repetition.
And patience. Speed doesn't come overnight, but it does come. If you keep repeating, your brain will eventually relax.
And when your brain relaxes, your voice becomes more natural. That's when speaking faster stops feeling scary and starts feeling normal.
Exactly. And that's a huge emotional shift, not just a language skill.
Yes, because it changes how you see yourself as a speaker. You stop thinking, I'm bad at English, and start thinking, I'm learning and I'm improving. I'm really glad you mentioned the emotional shift, Leo, because speaking faster isn't just about words, it's about identity. Many adults still see themselves as learners, even after years of exposure, and that label can slow them down.
That's so true. When you see yourself as a learner, you're always checking yourself. You're watching every step. But when you start using repeated sentence structures, something changes. You begin to feel like a speaker, not just a student.
I remember a listener once told me, I stopped translating when I started repeating. That sentence stayed with me. Translation slows everything down. Repetition creates direct connections in your brain.
Exactly. When you translate, your brain takes a long route, but repeated structures create shortcuts. For example, when you often use I'm not sure if, your brain doesn't need to build it anymore. It just appears.
I'm not sure if is such a helpful structure, especially emotionally. It allows uncertainty. You don't need to be perfect or confident all the time. You can say, I'm not sure if this is right, but, and continue speaking.
And that's another useful everyday expression. But. People think but is negative, but it's actually a bridge. It connects ideas and keeps your sentence moving forward.
Yes, it keeps you from stopping. And stopping is often where fear grows. When you keep going, even slowly, fear has less space.
I've noticed that learners who speak faster are not the ones who know everything. They are the ones who keep going even when they're unsure. Repeated structures give them that courage.
Courage is such a good word here. Speaking a new language as an adult takes courage every single day, and simple structures can feel like support, like something holding you up.
Exactly. Another structure I often suggest is, from my experience. It sounds strong, but it's very simple, and everyone has experience. You don't need special knowledge.
I love that one because it values your life. From my experience, learning takes time. From my experience, mistakes help. You're not just practicing English, you're sharing yourself.
And that emotional connection makes the sentence easier to remember. Your brain likes meaning. When something matters to you, it sticks.
What about moments when learners freeze completely, when no structure comes to mind and everything goes blank?
That happens to everyone. And in those moments, having a safety sentence helps. Something like, let me think for a moment. This is a very polite and natural sentence.
Yes, and it gives you control. You're not silent, you're communicating that you're thinking. That alone reduces stress.
Stress is a big enemy of speed. When you're tense, your body tightens, including your mouth. Repetition relaxes your muscles, just like practice in sports.
That comparison is so helpful. No one expects to run fast without training, but with language, people expect instant results.
And when those results don't come, they blame themselves. But the problem is often the method, not the person.
I really want listeners to hear that if you're speaking slowly, it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It often means you're trying too hard to be correct.
And correctness can wait. Communication comes first. Repeated sentence structures are tools for communication, not tests.
I've seen learners improve simply by choosing one structure per day, just one. They repeat it in different situations, and by the end of the day, it feels familiar.
That's such a practical idea. Small focus, big result, and it doesn't feel overwhelming.
Overwhelm is another thing that slows people down. Too many rules, too many words, too many expectations.
Repetition simplifies everything. It says, you don't need more,
Use what you have.
And when you use what you have, you gain confidence. Confidence leads to speed, not the other way around.
Exactly. Speed is a result, not a goal.
I think that's a message many adults need to hear. Stop chasing speed. Build comfort.
And comfort comes from familiarity. Familiar structures, familiar sounds, familiar feelings.
When English starts to feel familiar, your voice changes. It becomes calmer, smoother.
And people respond differently to you. They relax and the conversation flows.
That flow is what many learners dream of, and it's closer than they think.
Much closer, often just one repeated sentence away.
You know, as we come closer to the end of this conversation, I keep thinking about how gentle this approach really is. Repeating sentence structures isn't aggressive or stressful, it's patient, and patience is something many adult learners forget to give themselves.
That's so true. Adults are often very hard on themselves. They expect progress to look fast and clear. But language growth is quiet. It happens while you're living your life, not just while you're studying.
I've met people who said, "One day I just noticed I was answering without panic." That moment didn't come from learning new grammar. It came from using the same simple sentences again and again.
And that moment changes everything. When panic leaves, your voice becomes yours again. You're not borrowing English, you're using it.
That's such a beautiful way to say it. And when English feels like something you can use, not something you must impress with, speaking faster becomes natural.
I also want to remind listeners that speed is personal. You don't need to sound like a native speaker. You just need to sound like yourself, without fear.
Yes, comparison is another thing that slows people down. You hear someone speaking fast and think, "I'll never be like that." But that person also repeated the same structures thousands of times.
Exactly. No one starts fast. Everyone starts slow. The difference is who keeps going.
And going doesn't mean pushing. It means showing up and repeating, even on days when motivation is low.
Especially on those days. Those are the days repetition really works because it doesn't need energy. It just needs consistency.
I love that idea. Repetition is there for you when motivation disappears. It's simple, stable, and always available.
And it builds trust. You start trusting your voice. You trust that something will come out, even if it's not perfect.
That trust is so powerful. Once you trust yourself, you stop rushing inside your head. And when the rush stops, speed appears naturally.
It's almost ironic. The moment you stop trying to speak faster is often the moment you actually do.
I think that's a perfect place to pause and reflect. If you're listening and feeling discouraged, please remember this. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to repeat what already works.
Choose a few sentence structures that feel comfortable. Use them in your daily life. Speak them out loud. Let them become part of you.
And be kind to yourself during the process. Language is not a race, it's a relationship.
A relationship that grows with time, patience, and trust.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for allowing this conversation into your day.
We're really happy you're here, and we're proud of you for continuing.
Keep speaking, keep repeating, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
We'll see you in the next episode.